This week on your Old School RuneScape update, Sailing's navigation is experiencing rough waters ahead. We share our present thoughts on sailing and what it can become. The identity of dragons are also questioned this week while debating the best source of herbs and secondaries. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, episode 28, recorded Saturday, May 18th, 2024. It's not a dragon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. Sirion and myself are here this week, as we are each and every week, to discuss what's new in Old School RuneScape when it comes to news and just, other little things that might pop up on the blog or on the water, because that certainly happened this week, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. The video had so many sailing puns.
It did. Did you see they started a counter at the end of it?
Yeah. Are you going to start with it as well, or?
I'm not going to throw sailing puns your way, because if I tried to do that, there's no telling if that would come out the way we intend it to. But for new folks joining us, if you want to follow along, full show notes can be found at update.show/OS. And the thing I think that we wanted to get into the most this week was sailing, because I feel like we really haven't had too much time to talk about it recently on the podcast. We might have touched it a little bit earlier on, but I feel like there was lightning struck in the wrong place, and a whole bunch of collective nerves were set off this week in one way or another with this blog post.
Yeah, you could say that.
In regards to, in particular, what they're talking about, Milestone 1 and navigation. And I'm going to put this out here right now. I didn't vote for sailing, I voted for shamanism when the poll happened last year. And I still have yet to be convinced of the merits of sailing myself, and that's where I'm coming to on this. But I'm curious, and I'm interested to learn about what's potentially on tap. Where are you with sailing presently?
Yeah, I'm in a similar position. I think sailing has never really been able to convince me, and it got the passing vote of what was it, 70%? I think, right?
Yeah,
but by a margin,
about 500 votes.
What I find interesting is that in all the people I've talked with, I haven't been able to find a fan of sailing, an absolute fan of sailing.
I found fans of the meme.
I find yeah, exactly. So I have yet to be convinced. It feels like it came out of a meme and it was chosen because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's some aspects of the skill you really like that you told me about.
Yeah,
we'll
get
steal
there.
Your thunder and tell that. But I don't know. It feels not like a skill, and I can see so many things going wrong. And even if everything goes right, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to be a skill. It doesn't feel like a skill to me.
Yeah.
In a sense. It feels like a travel method.
And if this gets botched for one reason or another, you have to consider that it took, I think, what was it? I think this is the fourth try, I think? Or is it the third try or something to that effect?
No,
to get
I think it's only the
skill
second. I think there's warding, of course.
I thought there was something else.
Oh, not to my memory.
Okay.
And I think for that reason, sailing is such a it relies so much on the stars aligning that I am surprised they were willing to take that risk, right? I think if they had gone for something like shamanism, which relies much more on existing game interaction, so the existing engine would have done most of it. That's basically it, right?
Because you're talking about making something that was never meant to be traversable, the water, making it traversable, and then adding gameplay elements to it.
Exactly. So I think that is, high risk, high reward. At least they have balls, I guess, to try this. But I don't know. It feels like if this flops at that point, will we ever see a new skill?
And that's what's got so much riding on it. And I didn't think about it in that frame until very recently, in that, do you want Jagex to try sailing? Yes, of course we want them to succeed in whatever they do. Nobody, in their right mind wouldn't want Jagex to succeed in what they do. But when you put it in that mindset, that if sailing doesn't work, you have to ask, are you ever going to get another skill for old school RuneScape? And, I don't think I can answer that confidently with a confident yes.
No, yeah, exactly. And look, I think I need to be clear here for all the criticisms I have on sailing. I do trust the team that is working on it to do the very best they can within the frame of what the skill is, right?
Yeah, 100% agree on that.
That's that. I think that's important to state ahead of time. That even but my fear is that looking at what's there right now, even if sailing is the best version of sailing that could ever be, that has ever been and will ever be, I guess, it might still not be the right fit for the game. And that's sort of, nobody has been able to convince me about that otherwise. And I think there are more people in the same camp. I saw a lot of responses to the current blog and a video that there's a bunch of people who said, I voted for sailing, but this is not what I voted for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always going to be a risk. But when the margins are as narrow as they were with the sailing vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you ask what would have happened if there was a runoff, right?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, there was a passing poll, right? So at least 70% of the community was in favor of
do sailing after they picked it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. And then you can see where people would land after that. And, I feel like we had been, for up until very recently, been looking at it from a very abstract perspective, in that, we didn't necessarily know how it was going to play, right? And you look at this, and you look at the JMods who are doing the play test on the video that came out this week, and you see in particular how, for example, the ships maneuver in terms of the small ship versus the big ship, and fixing the luffing sails so that they, that they're better angled into the wind and what have you with that. And that's being told to us as one of the core loops of sailing. And for folks unaware, the core loop is what banks up the bulk of a certain aspect of gameplay, or at least a segment of the gameplay of the various skills in game. And they said there's going to be, potentially other things to deal with treasure and whatnot in group play. And this is all going to be non-instanced. And, you have to look at this and you say, based on this navigation technical update that they gave this week, is this going to sell anybody? And when you put it in that perspective, no, it didn't sell me this week.
No, it didn't look like a particularly fun game loop, because like the mechanic of the luffing sails happens as you're moving through the game world, and I don't know. Like, what are we trying to achieve here? Are you getting from A to B, in which case it's going to be an annoying interruption, or are you trying to train it, in which case you're just sailing circles on the sea hoping for that luffing to happen?
Yeah. And when you look at it from that perspective, let's put this on a different frame. Imagine you're doing this on land with your character. This becomes just running around then. And it was at this point I was kind of tuning out of the video. And I looked at it instead, and they said, well, there's going to be, the opportunity, to find treasure and, various wrecks and whatnot, and then you'll be able to pull them up and bring them to shore and utilize a tool at the dock and get loot from that, and you might even uncover some interesting tidbits from under the sea, lore wise and whatnot. And I thought, holy, what if this was on land? And what if this instead became a generic exploration, treasure hunting, or lore findings skill on land? And to me, that's what stood out to me about sailing. It wasn't necessarily anything to do with the gameplay. It was the fact that the side effects of, finding those bits and bobs at the sea, okay, that's neat. But what if you took that to land? And that immediately, instantly became more appealing to me than what was being shown on video. And of course, that's in my mind, but it just goes to show how navigation being how it is, let my mind go somewhere else. And it's like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to have fun with that. I'm more interested in these other things. Could that be done, anywhere else better in game through a different mechanic? And maybe it could. And to me, that's why I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not going to like sailing when it comes out. And that's where I'm at this
and
week.
You say you can just do it on land, right? And have it be a lore uncovering skill, but at that point it's no longer a skill because a skill needs gameplay.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that clue scrolls are not a skill.
I see what you did there. I don't know if that was planned.
No.
Okay.
That being said, and I think like a lot of people have been asking, what's the point of sailing? If it's like there's the board, right? Like the mission board, and people are like, what's the point of sailing? And people have been saying, yeah, but what's the point of Slayer? And that's the favorite skill of like half the community, it seems like sometimes. So, if you look at it from that perspective, if they what's the word I'm looking for? Center, build sailing around this concept of giving you purpose on what you're doing, right? Killing a specific monster, in this case, is going to a specific place and doing something there. I mean, like apparently there's enough suckers in the game that enjoy this kind of game loop. And if those are all those people, that's what they're looking for, then, hey, look, that's what sailing is. It's Mission Simulator 2026.
Yeah, I don't think 2025 at this point.
Unlikely.
Yeah. And the entire thing that we've just highlighted here is that we're not entirely sure what this is supposed to be yet. Maybe that'll become more clear as they show us more gameplay going forward on this and they design more than just the core navigation of it. Maybe. I don't know. Are you holding out hope that you'll feel better about that as we get closer to phase 2 with primary gameplay and island content?
The islands have never really attracted me to this skill. I'm a very mechanics focused player, so for me the core game loop needs to feel right, and the core game loop right now feels. What is the core game loop?
Right, and we're trying to figure out what that is.
I think like they undersold it, but I think the core game loop is going to have to be the missions, right? Not the actual navigation itself. I think the navigation. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people, what the negative response came from this week, right? People are like, sailing, navigation, that's what I'm gonna be doing all the time, and navigation doesn't look interesting because it's one click. I'm like, I can agree with that, but I think it's not the core gameplay loop, and I think that got lost in communication. So hopefully it will be more built around this mission board, and then it could be interesting, right? But even then, I think it will become very repetitive very quickly. That's sort of my fear. But look, like you can draw all kinds of comparisons, right? Like maybe the missions can be compared to an overworld dungeon from Dungeoneering. You use all the different skills, and at the end of it, you get a chunk of XP.
Maybe.
Right? It's basically Dungeoneering, but on the overworld, and instead of, exploring a dungeon, you're sailing a ship. I don't know. Or you could compare it to Slayer, or a hunter rumors, if you want, right? That's sort of what I'm getting the sense of, that the skill is going to be about more. And the navigation is just the tool to get there.
Right. And we didn't mention there will be first the closed alpha on navigation, and then after that there will be a open alpha on that where everybody will be able to get their hands on it and provide feedback about how all the ships work. Do you think that this entire thing is hinging on navigation in terms of, how the ships are going to move and all that? Like, as in, if you don't get that right, can you go further?
I think it's an important factor, and my absolute fear is that it's going to look absolutely dumb if you're just on like doing a quest on Crash Island, right? Monkey Madness, and then there's just like hundreds of ships half overlapping, sailing by continuously. Like, to me, that entire feeling, the skill and all that, just...
Because navigation is not instanced.
Navigation is not instant. I understand why it isn't.
Yeah.
But I think that it will... I have the feeling it will just feel dumb and jank.
That's what the video looked like.
I said it. Exactly, right? Like, you're just doing your thing on land, and then there's just like... You can't see any sea anymore because the entire sea is covered in ships. That's how the first 6 months are going to look like after the skill is released.
Do you think there's a world where this doesn't happen and it gets canned?
I think so, based on the community response. If there was another passing poll right now, I don't think it would pass 70%.
Yeah.
Which makes it important, I think, for Jagex to really sell the core game loop about missions and all of that.
Island
then
content,
you might get people back on the train or on the boat, I guess, but a hype boat.
Oh god, we used to have hype trains, now we have hype boats, and if you don't get hyped enough, what, you're gonna have to walk the plank?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. That one, I just love that one in there.
But like, for example, they have all of this extra scope, like, oh, they want ship combat, oh, they want Bermuda race, and like, let's not do any of this, right? I don't think the scope is already big enough as it is. I think they should really focus on getting the core gameplay right.
And that starts with the navigation.
Like I said, the navigation needs to not get in the way. That's the only thing navigation needs to do.
Did you catch the thing in the post about how they said once you click on the wheel and then you control the ship, but then if you click off the wheel and onto your boat, you're free to move around your boat? That's
no longer the case.
Okay.
That's no longer the case because that had too many misclicks. Look, and that's what I think, right?
Yeah,
I think we need to trust the team.
That.
We need to trust the team to do their own playtests, to make their own decisions, to make it feel right. And I have the trust they will do that to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to
take
a little bit of a chill pill. Take a chill pill, right?
Yes.
And not be up in arms about the current
because
thing.
It's turned into a shouting match, hasn't it?
It has. It absolutely has. And look, I'm not on board of the sailing ship myself.
No.
But that doesn't, like, it's there now, right? That's democracy in a sense, right? Like, you get to have a say, but sometimes you're part of the minority and you just have to suck it up, right?
And to be fair, we're not. And there is a world here where there would be content out there that would be trying to, disproportionately sabotage sailing this week, and I don't think we're doing that. I think we're just laying it all out on the table where everything is and providing the perspective of two people who are decidedly mid-level still, might not be when it arrives, but still, and just how it doesn't, I'm going to say this too, it doesn't feel RuneScape-y.
No, it feels like a departure. I mean, Hey, look at this, right? Like I said, high risk reward. Let's say that they pull this off, right? It actually works. What Old School has done at that point is they have truly, really departed from being the little baby brother of RS3 at that point. That's what I will say, right? Like, if they pull this off, like, sure, they have the new continents and new quest lines, and all of that, I think, has given Old School its own identity. But if sailing works, I think it will be very transformative.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But is that really the high risk that a first skill release for a game should have taken? I don't. That's my doubt.
Right, or
right?
could
Like,
they have gone safe, right?
I think they should have gone safer.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of the options was safe.
No.
But I feel there's so much unnecessary risk involved with sailing.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like that's a good way to put it there. And when it comes to things safe that we were mentioning, you look at what the bread and butter of RuneScape is, and I remember going back, and this is what Old School was really good at when I first started off. It was really good at, chugging those old memories of those nostalgia points of when Fremennik Province was released, or when Mauritania was released. And, we had a similar moment there with Varlamore, and you question if sailing's going to fit into that vein, and maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you look at where Varlamore is going instead, in particular with some of the Part 2 stuff that we've been talking about and beyond. I think that's equally interesting as well, and it's really interesting because this is happening in the same game that the sailing discussion is happening in, and I feel like we've also been around for a circle on some of the Varlamore stuff with the group boss this week too, haven't we?
Yeah, it's yeah. No, I think you make a good point that sailing and the Varlamore group boss discussion happen in the exact week.
Yeah,
it's an interesting contradiction.
It is, and in many ways we're seeing the same sort of feedback from the community when it comes to that group boss feature, because the community saw the boss as a dragon, so now it's going to be classed as a draconic creature and be weak to Dragonbane weaponry, which I don't think anybody said that it was going to be a dragon. For me personally, the first thing I saw when I saw that boss was the Gyarados Pokemon, the thing that evolves from the lowly Magikarp.
Yeah, it's also one of these, it's not a dragon. Look, we know what dragons look like.
Yeah.
In RuneScape, they have 4 legs and they have a tail, and they all have very similar models, right? It's very clear what a dragon looks like. This does not look like one of those dragons.
Yeah. Yeah. But the community said it's a dragon, so now it's going to be a dragon when it arrives, presuming it passes poll, which is in game right now if anybody wants to go vote on, for the rewards at least.
Yeah, I think it is a mistake. I think, lore wise, I mean, and it's not necessarily a bad gameplay decision, right? Like, you want your game to be predictable by some measure.
Yeah, and it's nice to have weaknesses associated with things too, I will say.
It's not a dragon.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah. All of the Mayas are currently turning around in the grave, hearing this, I think.
Over this and not the boats?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. I honestly didn't care too much about whether or not it was a dragon. My thing that I was most disappointed this week was the reworks that they did to the dueling wand, in that they're changing it so that it doesn't have its unique spell associated with it, and it's just really a traditional wand now, I guess. is the way to look at it. I kind of liked it better the way it was before. That was my big disappointment with this. How did you feel about this change to the dueling wand?
Yeah, I'm. It feels so safe, right? It feels like they were finally ready to try something new, and they were like, no. And that's why you were saying, I think, that sailing happens, which is completely new, and then they can't even pass a wand with a unique spell.
Yep.
What? And I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand, we want to pull this and have you also understand the magic changes that are going to come out. I get it, but at that point, you are sacrificing good gameplay decisions because of some unfortunate timing. Like, you can't convince me that this can't be worked around.
Right, and if you read between the lines, they say, in effect, that, we think that you guys would have liked it how it was, but we understand, based on, the magic changes coming out, that you don't want it that way, so we're going to, go this other way instead. But Osirion, did you hear that this dueling wand, in addition to being its Dragonbane weapon bringing its accuracy, will also have the Dragonbane strength associated with it as well? So it's going to be the wand that is going to be fit into the gameplay style of taking down this new draconic-based creature.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a useful item to finally get a little bit faster through those steel dragon tasks, huh?
Don't remind me of that. Don't remind me of that. Don't remind me of that.
So look, I don't think it's a bad item to have in the game necessarily. I just don't think this is the place where it should come from, because it's not a dragon. I think it is a shame that they're sacrificing a much more interesting item for it. I don't know.
Where do you land on the ranged armor set that's being added? That sits oddly close to Blessed Dragonhide now.
I feel that space is already a little bit crowded with both Black and Blessed being there.
Yep.
I mean, from a personal perspective, and I know I shouldn't vote based on my personal preferences.
Oh my god! Everybody normally votes that way. Don't you put your game designer hat on?
I will put my game designer hat on, but I did vote for myself here because I was like, it would be nice to have like a nice little upgrade between Blessed and Armadillo. But like, I feel the 70 ranged is already a little bit crowded, so we'll see where this goes. Exactly. I voted for it. It's to me, it's almost less offensive than the whole draconic thing. So
I agree. On the whole, it would be. On the whole, it would be for you. I'm not fazed either way about that. I was more upset about the wand, and the second thing I was most upset about was what they decided to do with this prayer regen potion. I thought it was actually kind of neat that the potion would have come from would have started with the Ranner weed, and keeping it in that same prayer potion line. But I feel like this is the community speaking again. This is a boss. Give us something that drops from this boss and let us make these potions.
Well, no. The change was that people found it weird that the secondary for the prayer regen potion didn't come from the herblore activity. And I think it's not an argument, right? Right? Like, not everything that's related to herblore needs to come from herblore activity. Look at the emelized crystals that come from, graceful marks of grace, right? I think it's not a good argument. It's just there happens to be a boss and herblore activity in the same batch of content.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that all of the other content that comes in the same batch as the herblore activity can't have herblore rewards anymore. It's not an argument.
No, it's not.
You can break it apart. So now we're coming up with a whole new seed. I don't mind. I don't mind introducing new herbs, right? Actually, that's kind of cool. I wish we had more herbs. But by replacing the secondary, which would retain value indefinitely because people would want to use these prayer regeneration potions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're adding a seed. First of all, I don't like seeds only coming from PVM.
Yep.
And that's also not going to remain the case indefinitely. In the future, this seed will probably be added to the seed packs from farming contracts and probably other sources of drops as well. Which means that over time, the drops of this boss are going to be devalued because those seeds no longer are the exclusive source. Whereas and that's sort of the downside, I think, right? We're getting to the point where this boss was in a position where it would get really solid sort of baseline drops that would not be super ultra rare.
Yeah.
And be a good money make. And now we're changing those to be devalued over time. Sure, the boss will now also drop Sunfire Splinter and all of that stuff, but there's like a million sources for those drops at this point. So you can get those to Hunter. So I think all in all, this version of the boss is worse. Or the boss rewards is worse.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't mind the ranged armor, but that's the only thing I didn't really mind. Like, I think all of the other changes are worse.
Do you think they're as a result of it just letting the community have their way on this? Because I feel like, and, you know, folks will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, the boss that's coming out with this, I don't necessarily is going to be as, you know, high stakes as the other bosses we have in game. So I'm wondering if, you know, the folks behind the content team on this one, it's just like, oh, the community wants it this way. Yeah, we can do that for this boss. That might just be what it is. That might just be what it is.
It's hard to say. Of course, they need to balance, right? Like, if one person says they want a certain thing, they're not going to do that. But at the same time, you know, I don't envy their job. They need to figure out what trends
it's difficult
are within the community, and that's difficult. But I think if you let the game design be up to players, they will come up with a game that they absolutely don't like, because players don't know what they want. As a matter of fact, you know, if you give there's this well-known thing that, like, players will optimize the fun out of a game if you let them.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
And here we're already getting them involved in the game design phase, which means they will optimize the fun out of the game before they even get their hands on it. And the main job of a game designer is to stay ahead of that. And I think they didn't quite hit the balance right here. I think they should have stuck to their guns and be like, we're sorry the timing is awkward, but we truly believe this dueling wand is better. We'll release it as it is, and then we'll review it close to the date if we need to make any balancing adjustments.
But isn't that antithetical to what old school is, in that the things need to pass? That, I mean, if they wanted to release it as it was, couldn't they have just pulled it? And
they could have just pulled it. Okay. They could have pulled a prototype of it into the technical beta, or they're not running it anymore, right? I don't know. Or just build it, right? And then pull it really late on, and that means they might have built it and then have to go back on it or make changes to it, but then just pull the dueling one closer to the release date when the magic changes are come out. These are all valid decisions they could have made. But they went the safe road, and I think we lost something along the way.
Yeah, and, you know, it's interesting you compare that to sailing, with sailing being the more risky road and this being the more safe road. They're doing the same thing, where it's losing a thing along the way, just for different reasons. One for more risk with sailing, and one for being too safe here. But, you know, we'll have to just wait and see how everything goes with the boss when it arrives.
I mean, ultimately, I'm not a big PVMer.
No.
And I doubt I'll be grinding this boss, so maybe it doesn't matter in the end, but I don't know.
Well, it does matter for the it does matter. It does matter for the ranged and herblore stuff, at least.
Yeah,
for us. But we also had some other little patch notes this week, following up from Project Rebalance Skilling Part 1. They renamed World 508 to the Brimhaven Agility Activity World. That's good.
Great.
That's kicking it back
really
to
good. I like that there's a world for that now.
Yeah.
I'm
which
glad
you
it's
kinda have to with the
508 and not
Bucks.
506 because 506 is my my home world.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't know that it was that close. I just thought you went with whatever suited your fancy for a day. I guess I've never paid attention to how close it was.
Yeah, I probably will actually change my home world because I noticed the ping of the UK worlds is actually a little bit higher than the German worlds. So I might actually switch to one of the German worlds.
I've wanted to make 418 my home world, but it's free to play.
Yeah.
You know why, right?
I know why. Yes.
Yeah. Good. Fun tidbit for the listeners if you guys know why. Just think of what 418 means on the internet and you'll understand. They've also removed fail points from the following agility obstacles: Canifis rooftop course at the last gap jump.
Yes. Oh my god, that one annoyed the heck out of me when I had to train there. When I saw last week that they removed the annoying ones, I was like, wasn't there one in Canifis that was really annoying? Why didn't they remove that one? So I'm so glad that they finally included that as well.
Yeah, it's nice. Also, Apatol, the stepping stone, and climbing down the tropical tree for anybody training.
Yeah, you had some fun with that 2 weeks ago, huh?
Don't remind me. Monkey Madness was fine at the end. With the jungle demon, it was everything else in between that was a little bit crazy. But
the interesting thing is that, like, I remember Apatol, the agility course, being like, because you're unlocked at like level 48.
Yeah.
But in when I trained agility back in the day, like you would train there only from level 75 because that's when the experience rates would actually start getting decent because you stop failing. Now that they've removed these failure points, I wonder if it becomes like a really, really good course.
That's interesting.
Levels.
That's interesting. I still got my eye on the wilderness course for when I go back to doing agility, which I'll report back on when I do that.
I will do the poly one, but I will have to try and convince you to do more desert quests, so I can do the diary and get that little short.
Desert quest, sure. Diaries, no. In any case, have you been doing any diaries? Any fun things you want to talk about this week?
No, well, I mean, one of the things I'm doing is actually for a diary. I'm currently at 71 thieving, really close to 72. That is also a requirement for 72 is outdoing hard.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I also think 72 will be required for Rogafix sleeps.
It is.
Yeah, double good to get that out of the way. Other than that, it's mostly been herb runs. I've also been alking a lot. Now I'm done with 75 crafting. I just chucked a few things on the GE to alk, with like a low buy limit, so I get like a few items per day.
Yeah,
that's fine. And then I realized that I bought, like, I put on the offer for all the alkables I need for 75 magic, and then I realized I'm about to do all of Mage Training Arena. I will probably be alking a lot as part of that, but it's fine. It's fine. More magic XP is good. I want that to be fairly high anyway, especially for the elf quests. So... no, it's good. That's been it. And my usual herb runs, slowly been racking up some money. And then I decided to spend all of it on the supplies I need for 83 construction, which is going to be a big milestone.
Nice. I also do have to chime in on our questing progress, because last weekend we finished Recipe for Disaster.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have that one out of the way. Barrow's gloves are great.
The only annoying one at the end in the entire fight was one of the Desert Treasure incarnations that used the ice spells, and somebody thought it was a good idea to add mechanics in that lowered stats. That was the only annoying one.
I mean, even in Desert Treasure, that one was really annoying.
I feel like it was easier in Desert Treasure.
Oh no, I had to teleport out of the one in Desert Treasure, I remember.
Oh, right. That was the one I got on the first go.
Yeah.
And you had to leave. Right.
I had to leave, yeah.
As for me this week, in addition to the recipe for Disaster Quest, I have been throwing away my life mining shooting stars. And at this point, I'm about 25,000 XP away from level 70 mining.
Oh, that's like another hour. Or
no, it's an hour. It's getting close. But it's really making me want to do something else, and I can just see the end there with that. I'm not sure if I'm going to go straight into smithing after this, or if I'm just going to throw another dart at the quest list requirements and just pick one of those and do it, so to speak, because they're all kind of in range of where they need to be. Obviously, rune crafting would be Guardians of the Rift. Smithing would be Giant's Foundry, and construction would probably be Mahogany Homes, or if I, somehow wanted to break the bank, I guess, in the POH at this point. But I don't necessarily know if I want to throw that much money at that sort of thing for that. But it is nice to have goals, and that's the thing I'll say about this. And I know folks will have noticed that we have started shifting in terms of how the goals have been going as they become longer and longer, and as we progress to those mid-level bands on that. It's not as though you can tell a story about 4 different grinds in a week. It's we're training these skills, and I feel like that's where RuneScape got its core behind it when RuneScape 2 first came out, the version of the game that this is based on. And I feel like that's what everybody leans into, and I feel like that's also why there's such a split in the community on the sailing front, and even on the Varlamore boss rewards too. And when you tie all of that together, we were questioning, does this make sense that the community is like this? And I think at the end of the day, looking at what we talked about here, it makes total sense that the community sees it that way, because we still don't even ourselves understand what sailing is, and we've been playing this game for how many years, right? So my hope is that we gain some clarity on that. And I think the thing I'd be interested to hear most from the folks who are listening to this podcast is, where do you guys land on sailing? Because we like having those direct conversations out there. So if you are somebody who absolutely loves what you're seeing with sailing, let us know in the comments. Let us know in Discord at update.show/Discord. That would be much appreciated. I'd truly like to meet somebody who loves what they see with sailing. I know you would too. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So check us out.
Meanwhile, we keep trucking on. I think we have our eyes set on some of the lunar quests right now, I think. Yep,
that's a good place to be.
And the elf quests are getting closer and closer as well.
There's also a gnome quest in there.
There's a gnome quest in there as well. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the program for this week. So if you want full show notes, update.show/OS, and you can also subscribe to the podcast there on your favorite platform, whether it, of course, be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube as well, youtube.com/@OSRSupdate. And as I mentioned, we do have a Discord as well, update.show/Discord, and a friends chat, which you can find at BitsBytes. But that is the end for this week, everybody. Hopefully the waters will be calm as you head off into the next week in RuneScape, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.